Hello and welcome to the Amber Stitt Show. I am your host, Amber Stitt. And for the Pathways audience today, we're going to hit all 5 pillars, which is always exciting. And really, I was thinking about focusing on money. I wore my big green glasses today, like money talk. We're going to talk about saving money, being smarter with money. I know that you dabble a little bit about passive income, which is perfect because with my clients and my audience, I don't always talk about retirement the traditional way. There's, I think, a different way to go about life and our transitions and our pathways. So thank you for being on the show today, Sally. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited that you can be part of all 5.
Well, thank you for having me, Amber. I'm so glad I can talk to your audience because most people have not heard of what I do. So thank you.
And I'm like a high input person. And I was going to tell you this. Before being a financial consultant, I was a corporate paralegal. So I was in these law firms learning all different ways about business entities and setups. I didn't like the litigation, the drama behind it. I like more of a plan. So I would geek out on trusts. And so when I'm meeting you and looking at your YouTube channel and just seeing what you're talking about, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. So really, even if somebody's not a true self-employed business owner, they can still be an employee with passive income as a self-employed person. So we're going to talk about a lot of that. And I think you're perfect for the conversation. So I want to start though at the beginning. I told you a little bit about being in a law firm and kind of being around this. And so focusing on talents is really starting with more of that investing in yourself. How did you get into this world? Because you're dabbling with real estate a little bit and money. I want you to tell the audience about how that all shakes out. But how did you get here? Because not everyone wakes up and says, as a young kid, I want to do trust planning and help people transfer. Yeah. So pass the mic to you, my friend.
Well, my story starts back in October of 2018. My parents were living in Goodyear. They drove from Goodyear, Arizona to Charlotte for my oldest nephew's wedding. Along the way, my mom got sick. She got septic of the blood. She was on a ventilator for 13 months, in a hospital for 15 months. My parents had planned to be away for just 2 weeks. I was working as a Medicare broker, Phoenix, I-17 and Thunderbird. I worked until 8 o'clock that night because it's open enrollment time. Drove to Sky Harbor Airport. Flew out on the red eye. My nephew met me at the airport. We went to IHOP and then we went to my mom's hospital room. The priest was giving her last rites. I knew she was sick. I didn't know she was that sick. My world kind of stopped moving at that point. The wedding was at 3 o'clock that afternoon. Fantastic wedding, family in from all over the place. Next day, we had lunch. I visited my mom. I had to fly out that afternoon because I had to be back at work 6 o'clock on Monday morning because open enrollment, I was working Michigan hours. My dad and mom stayed in Charlotte for over 9 months while my mom was recuperating to get strong enough to come back to Phoenix. I had my house in Phoenix. I was going out to their house in Goodyear 3 times a week to do the mail. December of 2018, a letter about 27 pages thick was my mom's Medicare statement for the first month in the hospital. $172,000. My dad, retired military, had TRICARE for life. She was getting the best care possible. I'm standing in their kitchen going, I have mortgage. I have student loans. I have credit card payments. You know, Phoenix, I was going to work 7:30 in the morning, Indian School Road, second car through the green light. Someone ran the red light. They had no insurance. I had 2 car payments. I'm like, yikes. So I called my friend Glenn. He had called me. I went to a real estate meeting in August and I said, I can't do anything until open enrollment is over with. Still in the middle of open enrollment. I'm like, Glenn, I have to change my life today. He's like, hey, Sally, we're having a Christmas party next Saturday. Bring a $5 gift and food. Come meet some of my friends who are real estate investors. I don't know about you, Amber, going to a party where you know nobody but one person. Yikes. Right. Best decision I did. I got started real estate investing. And in 2019, still working as a Medicare broker, I wholesaled 7 bank-owned properties nationwide and was making great money. Got in trouble with the IRS. I made too much money. I went from 22% up to 24% a tax rate. And I had to pay capital gains, get on a payment plan with the IRS. Kind of embarrassing.
Right.
In my national real estate group, a gentleman named Garrett Gunderson wrote a book called What the Rockefellers Do. He changed the title. I had a copy. I went back and read through it. My background, competitive intelligence. I researched and found the law firm that has a 72-year copy written on this trust. They've inherited a trust that's over 350 years old when we were still a colony. I became their client. And then I became certified to start teaching my real estate group because if I'm in trouble with capital gains, other people are in trouble with capital gains.
Oh, yeah.
Fast forward, January 2020, I was doing a weekly mastermind in my real estate group. The gentleman who ran the real estate group, we had a real estate transaction happen. I'm still in North Carolina. I sent him a text going, hey, this is $5,000 less than what we discussed about. Next day, he gets on the phone and he turned on a dime. I mean, he was my mentor. He was my friend. He ran the real estate group. And he's just like, I can't trust you. You're calling me a liar. You're calling me a thief. I'm like, no. I just asked what happened to our agreement. He was going to put me on hold for 6 weeks. And I'm like, I'm not a human yo-yo. Do you know about the Bob Proctor, Sandy Gallagher Institute? Have you heard of them?
No.
I'm a student of Thinking into Results. I contacted my coach and she's like, you need to move. You need a new real estate group and you need to start your own business. Like, okay, can you give me something simple to work on? So that's
right.
March of 2020, I started The Trust Is You, and now I'm speaking on podcasts, on stages. I was just down in Atlanta for the weekend, talking to a real estate group, helping people. 2 weeks ago, I was out in Las Vegas talking to, they're all insurance agents who make 1099 income. And if I can save taxes, other people should know about this too.
All right, let's pause there for a second because, oh my gosh, this is really important, Sally, because I think people don't realize with problems, there's opportunities. And it's not always fun. And I do a lot of talking about next generation, but I also talk about just the rising generation. It could be what's your next 10 years or whatever you want it to be. Any age, we can find a new business line, or as we become subject matter experts in one area, and then we experience some life changes that can then become our new business or a strategic partnership with somebody else. This is huge. And you mentioned Rockefellers. And so my firm and my colleagues do not treat retirement as this like throw money into this big bucket and we're not going to touch it until, that 65, 67, just sit and wait. Like that is not our MO. And we want people to have control over their lives and have opportunities and create passive income strategies and have cash flow. So there's lots of different ways to do that. So the fact that you were able to, and you're still evolving, and we'll get to some of your other business lines, but I want people to know that this is like very exciting time, I think, for us to learn from the titans and what did they do with their money. As you study these titans, even like Walt Disney used life insurance, there's different things that people are doing that are outside of the traditional banking institutional way. So I want to say that, but give you kudos on just being brave. And also executive coaching is so huge. And there's lots of different variations for different industries. But thinking that you are above being mentored, like throw that idea out because it's a reciprocating thing where like one person might be in your life for a season, like that one person pushed you into that community. And it didn't work out. You had to make a pivot and change, but it worked for that season to kind of give you the guts and the gusto. And then you can kind of, ebb and flow as things in life happens and you kind of get smarter with the process. And so congratulations on all of that.
Thank you. Exactly what you said. I was very complacent. I had my mastermind, sold 14 trusts. I'm doing real estate. Now I'm getting paid to be on stages and tell people about this. I mean, it's a whole, I don't want to say this, but it's a whole different stream of income. And, down in Atlanta, people were taking me to dinner. I'm like, okay, I'll go to dinner with you. It's amazing. Thank you for saying that because it has changed my life and I'm helping others change their future and generation after generation. So it's important.
Yeah. And there's something that this was weird what happens in financial planning world. Clients can complain about a fee for financial planning or estate planning. Oh, $3,000 for an estate plan. Well, but all the rules are set up and ready to go. And like, no one can get dramatic. These are the rules. We've written them out. It's like such a cool way to, to plan and kind of get that outline. Having that outline is so important while you are calm and having, you're healthy and well, not reactive. So part of what we talk about is take action today, kind of say like little steps. Take action today. Get your plan in order. It is not okay for your family or anyone that you love to just have a mess on their hands. And I know that we're going to speak to that a little bit more, but my Strength Finders top 10, like I know those. And then my Enneagram 1 is kind of like a responsible perfectionist that can't like, I get a little rigid, but like, when you work with teams and you kind of understand why that's important for my job, but then how I can counter that with other people on my team. And my husband's a little bit opposite and he works with me. So we can kind of counterbalance, like plugging it all together, but really focusing on talents could be anywhere from getting that coach, doing personal assessments, really taking yourself seriously. And like, sometimes when you get out of all of that, you realize, gosh, why was I not confident back there 5-10 years ago? But when you have that aha moment, like it's okay to be confident and own it. It's like, it's such a cool feeling. And it's like, why are we not celebrating that more? It's not arrogant. It's like, if you are an expert, share it with people, and it's okay to charge for that, get paid for that, because we can pay attorneys, we can pay CPAs. It's like, it's no different when we need that access to the information. So focusing on money is really like, okay, not so much probably in your world, you have a systematic plan, but like once you know how you incorporate, how you set goals or systems, different personalities are more rigid like me. My husband's more kind of like, it'll all be okay. But like he knows he needs a system to keep him on track. And that's where you come into play. Can we talk about 2024 a little bit at this point? Did you know about that before you got into this? Or did it just kind of happen that things were changing that reiterated what you were doing? Does that make sense?
For me, I did my taxes April 15th, 2020. My CPA did the taxes and he's like, you're going to have to get on a payment plan. This is how much it's going to be per month. I'm like, yikes. I was making good money. I can't complain. I'm doing well. In my real estate group in July, the deal of the week was a bank-owned reverse mortgage. My specialty is bank-owned. I was going to pay $20,000 for the bank-owned reverse mortgage. It's going to go to auction for $50,000. So the $30,000 spread in between. I knew my tax rate was 24%. Remember, it's July of 2020, middle of COVID. I had to wait 18 months. So a transaction like that, usually 6 weeks, I can do it very quickly. So I had time to research this. Again, going back to the book, I started putting things into Google, going through things. It was interesting because when I contacted the law firm, they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. We're a private law firm. So then I had to find a representative who was selling the trust because the law firm wouldn't talk to me directly as an individual. This is going to be a sad story. Richard, who is my contact, he got me set up. We had a conversation. I explained to him I'm in a real estate group with about 800 investors. Can I do mastermind? He's like, that's great. Back in September, I sent him a message saying his website's not working. And I'm like, wow, I sent it on Thursday. I haven't heard from him. So I called him like on Tuesday going, he's usually really good. He didn't pick up his cell phone. Over the weekend, his kidneys shut down and he died very unexpectedly. And, because he has this trust and he had to trust his successor, everything that happened, I had to change a few things, but all his assets, he too was a real estate investor and doing other things. Everything that happened for him, a very unexpected death. There's going to be no inheritance tax. It's going to go from a plan from divorce with 2 grown children and had a favorite nephew. He had it all worked out, how it was going to be broken up between the 3 of them and everything. And I'm just like, wow, I never thought how the trust would affect somebody with, something that happens so quickly, but it does matter. Because I had to deal with my parents' estate and everything.
Right. Yeah. Because you've had personal experience too. So was he part of that law firm or was he part of the real estate investor group?
He was living in Long Beach, California. So he was not part of my real estate group in Phoenix. But my coach had told me to join another group, that I'm in a national real estate group. So I joined another group out of Tennessee. And, now I have more clients because I'm talking to more people, doing more things. I moved to North Carolina. They have a very strange rule here called an upset bid. So I'm not trying to crow, but I just won an upset bid of one of the first foreclosures since COVID went through. I got it for $260. I'm going to wholesale it at the end of the month for $310. I'm going to make $50,000 on the split. And because of that, I'm going to save almost $9,000 in short-term capital gains. The person who's buying it is going to rent it out, but I'm lazy. I don't want any renters, so I wholesale everything I get.
Okay. So let's talk about IRMA. Can you break that down for the audience?
Sure. IRMA affects if you're on Medicare, 65 or older, or if you got on early. IRMA affects your Part B of your Medicare. Part A is your hospital stay. Part B are your doctors and medical tests. If you're making everything put together, Social Security, wages, pensions, SEP withdrawals, 401k withdrawals, capital gains, interest income, dividend income, rental income, or royalty income. If you're making more than $91,000, you'll have to pay more for Part B. I believe this year, I'm not a Medicare broker anymore, but I believe that in 2023, you're paying $166 from your Social Security for Part B. If you're making more than $170,000, you have to pay all of Part B. And it affects a lot of people on Social Security are dependent on Social Security, but there are people out there who are making good money and aren't aware how much it's costing them and things like that.
Okay. So for the audience, and a lot of my clients are 28 to 55. So let's pause here for a second and just hold that thought.
Okay.
If you're listening to this episode and you're like, well, I am not Medicare age, so this does not apply to me, pause for a moment. We are in November for Long-Term Care Awareness Month. Part of long-term care awareness is not like insurance products. It's actually talking about everything prior to. So if you have parents that are alive, correct, this is going to become your problem if, and we talked about focusing on money, focusing on talents is really building for personality styles and like how to build out your processes. But focusing on money when we're talking about this, there's really no personality style to mesh with. It's get it done with a law firm that knows the laws of your state.
Correct.
And it needs to be mapped out. This has nothing to do with personality. It's just a responsible thing to do. If you have parents and they're not in the same state, which is very common, right? You've dealt with that. Your parents were going from Arizona to North Carolina. This is not the first time I've heard of this, and I'm almost 44. So this is happening in my friend group and some of my clients and colleagues. Do not ignore Medicare in that thought process of like, well, I don't have to worry about the rules because I'm not eligible for that. Your parents are going to be lost because most of them are, and they don't know where to go. And you've witnessed that as a Medicare broker. Other podcast episodes on my podcast have talked about that with a couple of my other guests.
Oh, fantastic. Most people aren't aware of it. So I'm glad you're telling your clients about it.
Yeah. So let's continue on this and talk about focusing on risk, because again, I'm an insurance planner and a business strategist, but it's not just about product. This goes back to understanding the rules, the regs, and let's keep more of your income in your pocket. So, and I think you touched on something here with tax brackets. And again, we're not tax advisors, but people assume, okay, if I make X amount, you mentioned 24%. That doesn't mean every dollar is on that. There's a stair step along the way.
Correct.
Of how your different income can be taxed. And so it's a little more tedious. There's luckily a lot of strategies you can do, but you're going to need some help to get them done, right? So let's talk about that.
With my clients, when I offer them a 30-minute tax breakthrough session, I take them out to NerdWallet, which is a website, and we discuss, hey, how much did you make in 2022? The little calculator's there, and I show them how to figure out their tax bracket. With the Business Spendthrift Trust, I can legally say they're going to save at least 70% on their federal taxes before they take deductibles. So just to give you an idea, most of my clients are up to 90 to 95%. 2022 federal taxes, I've got 1099 income. I save 92% on my 1099 income. The reason we need to figure out the tax bracket, there's 7 different tax brackets between 10% to 37%, 7 different tax brackets, and it can affect you when you make too much money different ways. One of my clients, we know each other from a mastermind. His father passed away in 2021. He left his son a stock portfolio, 100 shares of the top 100 dividend paying companies. I thought that was a neat thing to do. John's a coach. He was making so much money here at 24%. When he added every quarter, he was making about $37,000 dividends on these 1,000 shares
every quarter. Dividends.
He was going on fabulous vacations. He sent me a postcard from Canada saying, look where I'm staying. Then he got the tax bill. Well, he went from 24% tax bracket all the way up to, I want to say 35% tax bracket, because his coaching, 1099 income and his dividend income, he's just like, oh my gosh, no one told me this. We had to get his financial planner involved because she had to change the stock certificate from Dawn's name to the trust name. So we did this second quarter of 2022. He started the trust second quarter 2022. His financial planner had to change each of the stock certificates. When he got paid third quarter stock certificates, he paid for the trust. And every quarter, he's saving at least $17,000 in interest income or dividend income on his taxes. He also got the business trust because he's a coach, a transition coach. He's saving money there too. I don't have the slide in front of me, but I want to say he's saving over $58,000 every single year. He's in his 50s, but this is going to continue for the next 10 years. That's going to be over $500,000 saved in taxes legally. I mean, that's life-changing for people.
Oh, absolutely. And I know your YouTube has some of this information, and we'll link up a lot of that information. We'll talk about that at the end as well. But I know you mentioned a quote in one of your videos. I think it was a Rockefeller quote about what do wealthy people do? to make sure they have more money?
The book is now called What the Billionaires Do.
Okay.
The author, Garrett Gunderson, teaches in my national real estate group. It's a book about the Rockefellers. They have the trust. Most people are unaware the current tax code went into effect February of 1913. It was only supposed to be around for 6 years. So the Barron families, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Carnegies, the Kennedys put this into the tax code. And the book discusses whenever you're an heir of the Rockefellers, you take out an infinite banking policy and make the trust the beneficiary. So if you want to start, I'm making this up, you want to start a Baskin & Robbins, you take out an infinite banking policy. And then when you pass away, it goes back to the trust. So it's always increasing and growing and growing and growing.
And I mentioned like the Walt Disney biography. I didn't read it personally. And one of my strategic partners in his study group, he talked about it most recently. So I want to read it at some point, but talks about how no one really believed in his idea for Disney. So he just took it upon himself to find a way to get some money out of his insurance policy. So like you mentioned, I think a lot of people don't realize the tax code was not always here. Like we didn't have this madness always. So there's built-in strategies around this. And this is why it's so important to work with tax advisors, not just a CPA that's putting data entry in to say, okay, you put this money in and then look at the tax situation, because you're a little more complex the more that you have passive income plus maybe W-2 or maybe all self-employment, but there's some beauty in it. I mean, it's like you got to build out the systems with the people that, understand the tax code and can understand your problems, like in a good way. There's so many things you can do and it's perfectly fine. And Spendthrift was funny because when I was a paralegal years ago, I always thought the Spendthrift Trusts were for the naughty kid that would spend it all and get in trouble, because I think there's a way to put some provisions in there that could spring in if something were to happen. But in my textbook learning, I always thought about Spendthrift a little bit differently, like, make sure that they don't receive all this money and just go to party town, like
exactly.
Too wild.
Who are the Hilton daughters? Exactly. So
right. And so we're going to link up some of the ways that people can find what you're talking about too and get that consultation. So my fourth step is really talking about innovating marketing and technology. That's kind of like that one that's like, okay, I know that you have a podcast and I know that you are innovating through YouTube. Around 2020 with COVID too, sounds like you did a ton of research around that time because of family issues. And around that time, I already had a virtual business, but I said, okay, how do I help people no matter what happens? And we did a lot of study groups talking to business owners that if you did shut down, how are you still showing presence? Like your doors are open, especially if you are, a shop like a hair salon or something. And people were innovating like crazy. Let's do courses online. Let's sell products online. While we have to wait this out, they were figuring out another way. So I was really always studying that and, how do then we innovate too. And so what did you do with your business? Because you kind of started a business right in the middle of all of that.
I started in the middle of it. To tell you the truth, COVID really affected me. When it started, I had 12 notes, which is I was the mortgage on the house. I didn't have the paper. People are paying me their mortgage. April of 2020, all 12 notes stopped paying me. I'm like, yikes. I was purposely doing bank-owned properties, things like this. But when the courts shut down, a lot of things shut down. So I started different businesses online. One of my clients, true story, she got laid off because of COVID, single mom with 3 children. She comes home, she's going, what am I going to do with, I don't have a business. They had 2 dogs. And she's like, I spend so much money on dog chew toys. She started an Amazon store selling toys. October, November, December of 2022. Her business was making over $20,000 a month. All of a sudden, it just keeps growing and growing. Because she got the trust, we were using those numbers. She's going to save over $45,000 a year. And she's going to start putting it, her oldest child is 12. She's like, I never went to college. And she goes, when I got laid off, she was working at a resort in California. She goes, COVID affected her. She wants her children to have exactly what you said. What if the world shuts down again? She wants them to have options. That's the most amazing thing. People are using the money they're saving here to give other people options. I've got clients who set up charities and things like this because COVID affected everyone differently. I mean, thank God I had money set aside and I had to foreclose on my 12 notes. 3 of them were in Tennessee, so it was a forfeiture. But I had to have money to be able to foreclose on them. And then I was able to get the property and resell it. But I wasn't ready for it. I'll be honest. COVID stuck up on me because I thought I was doing well when everything started shutting down.
Sally, you don't know this, but that's where this Pathways of Peak Performance came up. It was originally called Pandemic Proof Your Business, and it was in a different order. And I presented it in 2020. I was asked to speak somewhere, and it goes, okay, let's get the fear of pandemic. Let's get rid of that. Let's have resilience. Let's know who we are. Let's figure out how we handle our money goals. And if we need some help, build some systems. If we're really organized and great. Not everyone's going to be financially sophisticated. Doesn't matter. Just get to the point of building out the systems. Either hire somebody, find the app, no excuses. Just figure it out and do the work. Then focusing on risk could be getting organized. Think about like back in the day, you'd open up your cupboard and you'd have like those, I always talk like back in the day. I'm like the oldest of 7. So I had the emergency contacts and like, who do you call if I'm babysitting down the street? Nobody knows that stuff about each other anymore. Like most people do not know. Like I remember phone numbers from back growing up, but if there's an emergency and there's going to be something, what's your game plan? Are there virtual documents for your people to grab and go as needed? And it's like, put down the Netflix because people are, you like, let's be real people.
Yes.
And get a little more organized. And once you kick it off and kind of clean it up, you just have to add on to it. And so that's where like even trust can be like that. There's the standard approach and then there's like a pour over and different things that I've done. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving legal advice, but there's things that you can do. So when there is a curveball, because there will be another one,
right.
What did you get accomplished in advance? And so like sometimes though, we kind of get hit from the side and then we create opportunities and then that's our story. And you have a little bit of that mixed in and so do I. And that's okay.
For me, all of a sudden, I had income coming in through. So what I started doing, where Litchfield Park is in west of Phoenix. I went through people who had rental homes, did some research, who had paid off homes. I contacted a couple who lived in Litchfield Park, not making fun of them. They're in their 70s. They had 2 houses in what's considered New Litchfield Park that were paid for, and they weren't paying their rent to them. The wife, who was 76 years old, she wasn't sleeping. Her blood pressure was up. The husband says, I know how much I paid for them. Give me $150,000. You'll have both those houses. Those houses were worth over $260,000 each. I purposely talked to an attorney. I knocked on the door. I went up to each house and I said, I'm the new landlord. How much can you pay per month? If you don't pay correctly, I can foreclose on you. The one house said, I'll pay you $100 a month. The other house said $10. Literally in 3 months, both of them stopped paying me. I was able to foreclose on them. I wholesaled them to somebody else and I'm not trying to crow, I made $60,000 on the wholesale deal on each house. So that's $120,000 that I could live off of during COVID, which helps so much.
But you also gave these people a solution.
Correct.
The owners,
Correct.
The original
Correct.
ones. Because if they're stressed out and maybe having chronic illness because of stress, you gave them a way out through their equity and their assets. So that's a point of...
Exactly. I was trying to make a win-win for everyone. I mean, $100 rent, you could do something. You could do something during COVID for $100.
Sally, what you mean to say is there's no excuses, people. There's something you can do. Get out there and go do it. Clean a house, do something. And that's what I talk about with like, not everyone's super financially sophisticated or wants to be a finance expert. That's okay. But you can't just not know what's going on. Participate up to your abilities, work with your family or whoever, more of like a team effort, but know where things are. You can't just go, well, he always or she always did that for me. That's not an excuse in my book. But again, I've already mentioned I'm a little more rigid, but like, I think you're reiterating that, like, do not let these things happen to you. So just building that resilience. And then let's go into focus on community to wrap this up, because you started with some people that helped you around that original time to go meet with some of those investor groups. And then you found some better ones. And it's kind of cool. Like as you get older, I like the wisdom that comes with getting older and experiencing things, because you can look back and almost give yourself a laugh of like, that was a big deal a year ago. Oh my gosh. And then you kind of move forward and you're like, and like speaking, not everyone can get on stage and speak and look at you go. I don't know if you were always great at that, but that's something that almost everyone has to work on a regular basis. It's like, I think the worst fear for everybody. I don't know the statistics on that, but that's what I've heard. So really just like pushing into that community, who's going to help you, but be reciprocating And a lot of experts will talk about who's in your group, because if they're negative and they don't believe in that crazy idea, like you knocking on a door and going, I'm going to go try this in Litchfield Park and see what happens. Crazy ideas, try them out. See what happens.
I mean, I knew I had to find another solution because the solution I had failed. It didn't fail. I was able to make more money once I wholesaled everything. But when all of a sudden, when you think you're going to be making $9,000 a month and it just dries up, find another solution. And they were not the only people I worked with, but they were the first people. And, he was 78, she's 73. And he's just like, that's all the money we want. He's like, for my wife to sleep well at night, that's priceless. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, let me do this. There's so many solutions out there. You just have to think about it. And your comment about Netflix, one of my friends who lives in Phoenix, she tells me I'm lucky. I'm like, I'm not lucky. I'm doing something. And, I had invited her before COVID to come to the real estate meeting. And she's like, Wednesday nights are good TV night. Chicago Fire's on. I'm like, they have repeats during the summer. Just come to a meeting, So it just, we're not friends anymore. I have to apologize about that.
Don't apologize for that. It's one of those things, there's some clarity when people are building things with you. And it could be building things for income, but building things for charitable reasons, or just donating your time, but doing something that's creating some like positive result. And it doesn't have to be a metric that always monetizes to some, financial return. In my experience, the more that you get out there and do things, the income just kind of comes because you're around people that will support you. And with women, we can be almost the most competitive against each other. And I have now a core group of girls, about, women, 3 years now. I mean, we're meeting on the side for different business opportunities and daydreaming. So we're now going and meeting each other in different states for different retreats and masterminds versus the traditional, what I used to do, happy hour in. Maybe go on a vacation. Now my vacations are kind of like a split vacation write-off mastermind opportunity. And then usually we figure out some business from that. To me, that's more rewarding versus like, every now and then we'll chill, read a book, watch something to catch up. But if people just don't want to help themselves off the couch, and you might have to move past that. And that's okay. You can't feel guilty about it.
I read a statistic. Average American doesn't read a full book in a year, which is I can't imagine that. I mean, during COVID, the thing I missed most was the libraries were closed. I mean, they did curbside delivery. On all my presentations, I have a nonprofit, and then with the trust, when you download the presentation, the second to last page is a series of books that I think everyone should read. The Science of Getting Rich, Power of Your Subconscious Mind, Think and Grow Rich. I mean, there's so much out there. I told you before we started this podcast, I'm dyslexic. And for me to learn how to read.
You mentioned that really briefly. It's more common than people know from what I'm hearing lately. Because my daughter's 5, and then there's kids that are, I'm hearing from parents.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There wasn't a lot of resources back then, like back 10 years ago.
My mom sat down with me, and I can remember the summer between first grade and second grade. I read my first book, Marty the Smarty. It's a Dr. Seuss book. And, she gave me the joy of reading. I can't imagine someone not picking up a book and getting lost in having reading for fun or reading for business. I mean, there's so much out there in the world. I mean, my mom, she would get lost in the book. I mean,
and that's how I grew up too. I'd sit with grandma, my mom, but some people like my husband don't love that hard book, like that book, but we have options. We have audiobooks. We can watch a video, YouTube, you can do it. There's ways. So I want to link up that page for your books. And then let's wrap up talking about the most recent thing you have going on.
What I have going on right now, I have a real estate deal that's going to be wholesaled next Friday. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house I got for $260. I'm going to wholesale it for $310. I'm speaking. I was just down in Atlanta speaking to a real estate group about the Spendthrift Trust. 2 weeks ago, I was out in Las Vegas talking to insurance agents, because most insurance agents are 1099 income earners.
Yep.
And
I got a few 1099s.
Yes. So, to start saving, if the presidents and Rockefellers can save money on the trust, why can't we save money? Do you know, I just got on a new site. Do you know anything about OWL, OWWLL, on your phone?
Mm-mm.
I have a speaking coach. She gave me a link to get on there. Today, I talked to a gentleman who teaches people how to invest in Forex, and people don't realize Forex investors get taxed twice, capital gains and interest income. And he wants me to talk to his group next Tuesday. I'll do it for free because I have an affiliate program. If someone in his group buys a trust, he gets paid. His people in his group, they'll save taxes. I get paid. It's just a beautiful win-win-win situation. I just want to teach people, maybe it's not for them today. One of my clients, I talked to them about 18 months ago. She's doing a side hustle. And then she just sent me a text message this morning going, I need to start talking to you about the trust in January. I'm like, here's my schedule. Get on it.
Get on that schedule. I know.
My website, www.thetrustisyou.com. I have a free video out there, so you can download and watch it at your own time. Or you can set up an appointment, a 30-minute tax breakthrough session with me. I post, you said you see me on YouTube. I'm on I got kicked off LinkedIn. I'm like the only person who I know who got kicked off LinkedIn.
Tell me, how are you a rebel and getting kicked off? Like I was kind of a rebel younger. So how do you do that on LinkedIn? Let's talk about it.
I was going live. I had over 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. This is about 2 months ago. It's on a Friday. I was answering somebody on LinkedIn and all of a sudden the page changes and says, you're being hacked. We have to shut you down.
Oh no. So it wasn't like your content. It was.
So 2 weeks go by. I get another email saying, we need you to verify your the front and the back of your driver's license. I did that. There's several weeks that they keep sending me an email at 1:30 in the morning. So I don't get it until later. I'm asleep, So finally I had to give them a copy of my passport. It was 6 weeks and they finally sent me an email going, you've had too many violations. Like, what violations? One of the things I did, Amber, that, maybe it's a violation. I love football. So when I watch football on Sundays, I started this back in January 2022. I was going through all my contacts who met me that week. And I would go, if they had a personal website, I would go out there, I'd get their name, their email, they had a phone number, and I would put it into my CRM system. So yes, I lost all my contacts, but I have everything from August of 2021 all the way up until when this happened in August of 2023. I have all those contacts in my CRM. One of my coaches, Casey Eberhardt, always says, Facebook, LinkedIn could close you down. It's not your list until you have that list to yourself. Yep. So that's why I did what I did.
Well, yeah, email lists are very important. But it kind of goes back to what I was saying. Know who your people are and know how to contact family, important documents, but also if you are in business, you need to know who your potential prospects and clients are. And so it's, again, goes back to the principles of really personal investing in yourself, but also being in control of things and not just assuming and just like letting people do things for you. So I really appreciate, this was like a jam-packed session today. So I really appreciate.
I enjoyed talking with you, Amber. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, really, let's have people really focus on reaching out, looking into the planning that you're talking about, and hopefully you'll need it because I think anyone's capable of having some passive income and different variations. It doesn't mean that everyone wants to manage real estate, but there is a variation of private equity that is so important for people to have.
A friend of mine, when she got laid off, she started selling all her things, clothes she wasn't wearing on eBay. She made over $9,000 just eBaying. I mean, how easy is that?
I know. I think Gary Vee did this whole bit, something of just like getting books from garage sales and just read, like, he's like, let me show you how easy it is to create a side hustle. Like, go do it. Go do something.
One of my clients, he fell, broke his hip, and has to go to assistant living. His baseball cards selection, he had all these baseball cards that weren't open. I don't know about baseball cards. I took it to somebody else to look at this. This gentleman who's going into a nursing home, the baseball card collection was worth over $12,000. The guy who looked at the baseball cards took a commission from it. But the gentleman who was, he needs this money to live in a nursing home and get his hip replaced and everything. So exactly, there's so much you could be doing out there.
Really, we could close out our episode today just really being mindful of having those big, crazy ideas and then being around people that can help you implement or daydream about it together because you never know where it can take you. But definitely put yourself out there and do the work, right?
Correct. I appreciate you spending the time with me, Amber. Thank you for having me on your show.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you soon. Okay, Sally?
Thank you. Take care.
Maybe in Arizona one day. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of The Amber Stitt Show. For more information about the podcast, books, articles, and more, please visit me at amberstitt.com. Until next week, enjoy your journey at home and at work. Thank you for listening.